The Curses and the Covenants, a History Weaver Mystery, Book 2, by Connie Worden. Read by the author. Chapter 6. I dawdled over breakfast. The day was bright and looked as though it should be warm, even though the thermometer swore it was barely above 0 degrees Celsius. There were a few flakes of snow coming down this morning, Ma announced. Doubtful, there's not a cloud in the sky. Wouldn't be the first time I've seen snow come down from a clear blue sky. My mother is not much better with scientific possibilities or impossibilities than she is with dates and times. I've learned not to be drawn into pointless argument. I said only, "It's cold enough for snow. Poor birds, they don't know what hit 'em." A handful of unidentified birds played in and around the branches of Ma's lilac bushes, which were in view from the dining room windows. The lilac leaves were beginning to show signs of budding. If I had dining room windows of my own, I'd want to be able to see lilacs through them, I thought, shocking myself. Where had that thought come from? And I'd like my bedroom to face east, so the first thing I'd see in the morning is the sun coming over the ram's horns. And my office, or maybe I'd write at my kitchen table, but at any rate, I'd like to be able to look out to the south or the West Mountains while I'm working. This was crazy talk. I'd have to nip it in the bud. Unbeknownst to me, I'd somehow begun to lust after the view I'd seen in the photo of Kim Dorset's properties. Embryonic house plans had even begun to surface from the nether regions of my subconscious. "Where is Bow Street and Eversley Road, Ma?" I asked her, apropos of nothing, and instantly regretted it. She'd want to know why I'd asked. I couldn't very well tell her I had a hankering to take a drive and look at a piece of property I knew I could never buy. "Why? Is there a house you're interested in out there?" As I've mentioned, I'm an open book to my mother. "A place to rent?" she persisted. No, nothing like that." "Oh, you're not thinking of buying property, are you?" "Of course not." "Then why are you asking where Bow Street and Eversley Road is? Were you around Kim Dorset's yesterday?" She could have made a fine living working for a psychic hotline. "I was, yes, just about a place to rent, but I'm not going to rent the one we looked at if I can help it. And of course I'm not thinking about buying property, how could I?" "I could help you out. I have some savings I could lend you. Putting money into buying a place makes so much more sense than throwing it away on rent. You never see it again when you rent. Makes more sense to invest it in buying, and then you have something to show for it in the end." I sighed. She does occasionally make sense, but the whole thing was so completely out of the question. "Ma, I'm not looking to have you lend me money. I have some savings, too, when it comes to that. I just mean, well, I'm not very settled. I don't know where I'm going to be living. It's entirely impractical to think of buying a place." "Well, if you bought a place to live, then you'd know where you're going to be living," Ma said comfortably. Her logic was impeccable this morning, other than believing that moisture can fall from a cloudless sky. "Well, but And I discovered I had no answer for her. I did have some savings. Would I have enough for a down payment? It didn't bear thinking of, but why couldn't I keep from thinking of it? "Bow Street and Eversley Road, let's take a drive out there," Ma said, reaching for her coat and purse as the words issued from her mouth. I had the feeling my life was spiraling out of my control and being driven by hands other than my own. The hands of fate, or some other hands? Probably my mother's. "You'd have some view if you bought this place," Ma enthused, throwing her head back and drawing in deep draughts of the cold, clear air as we let our gaze wander over the fields against their spectacular background. We guessed at the property lines and walked them out, Ma's idea of a 2-acre plot being better than mine. Some of the plot was fenced in, but not enough of it to be the whole 2 acres. The southwest corner of the property was wooded, an aesthetically pleasing mix of deciduous and evergreen. "You'd have firewood handy if you decided to put in wood heat. Bound to be a lot of dead wood in that forested area. You'd just need to meet someone who could handle a chainsaw for you. Wood is so much more economical than gas. You can't imagine what I pay in heating bills these days." "Wood heat? How can I put in wood heat? There's no house to put it in." "That is a problem," she acknowledged. "Where would you live?" I have some savings I could lend you, I told you. You wouldn't consider building, I suppose? Of course not. I recognized my overuse of that particular phrase today. It's a completely ridiculous idea. I only agreed to come and look at the place because I wanted to see if the scenery was as pretty in real life as it was in the photo in Kim's office. Mother, please get it into your head that I am not interested in buying this property, or any property. I have no idea how long I'm even staying in Beaver Row. If it's scenery you're after, this piece of land would be hard to beat. A view of all the mountains around the valley, fields and woods. You can see right down to the river from the back of the land in the south. Where are the property lines, I wonder? Maybe it extends right down the canyon to the riverbank. A lot of these acreages close to the river do, you know. It's wasted land, being all vertical, but it would give you easy access to the river if you wanted to swim in summer and so forth. Look, sure enough, there's the trail down to it. A bit steep, but you're young, that shouldn't bother you. Had she heard a word I'd said? My mother had fallen in love with the land we had our feet on, and my mother with an idea in her head is unstoppable, a pure force of nature. She took no more notice of my objections than the churning river below us took notice of the boulders it swept grandly over and wore away by its persistence. "Angie," she said suddenly, "what about our old motorhome?" "What about it?" "Well, it's livable. You could park it out here to live in while you're having your house built. It would need winterizing if you can't afford to build this year, and you have to winter in it. But it has propane heat. It could be done. It could be quite comfortable for one person. Of course, if you're sensible, you'd just move back in with me till your house is built. You could get a cow or two to keep down the grass. It's too much for you to mow. It's such a lovely property. It shouldn't be sitting here just going to waste." Yes, it is lovely, and if I was interested in buying this property and spending a fortune having a brand new house built for myself, which I'm not, and then insanely decided to keep cows, which I wouldn't, I'm sure the cows would revel in the beauty of their new home and surroundings. Out of desperation, I am frequently driven to binges of sarcasm with my mother. I'm not sure why. It never has the slightest effect on her, but I suppose it gives me a measure of relief. "Not for the cows," she said scornfully, as though I were an especially backward pupil. "The cows don't care about the view." "Yes, Ma, I'm aware. That was sarcasm." "A nasty habit of yours." "Yes, I'm aware of that too." My shoulders began to droop in resignation. I could feel my resistance ebbing away. I was going to end up going insane and buying this beautiful piece of land, like it or not. The view was like a drug that had seeped into my veins and was overriding all common sense. With the view and my mother both working on me, I was a helpless victim. "Well, like I say, the sensible thing is to move back in with me anyway. You're right that it's not sensible to buy a property and build a new house. You'll inherit the one I'm in when I go. I was just getting carried away with the idea." "I'm not moving back in with you, not permanently. I'm 33. I've had my independence too long. I need to stand on my own 2 feet at 33, don't I?" "Well, what then? If you don't buy, you'll just be throwing money away renting." "Ma, is that old motorhome really livable? It's pretty ancient. Does it leak?" "No, it's sound as a bell. Your Uncle Jim always keeps it well looked after in case I ever decide to head south with them some winter." "It wants updating from what I remember." "So update it. We could do that work ourselves. We both learned a lot helping Daddy do the renovations we did on the house. You were surprisingly a real help. You were very good at those kinds of jobs, I remember. Quite a natural. Maybe you'd even be able to do some of the work on your own house when it comes time to build." "Mother!" I threw my hands in the air and hooted at her. If I bought this property, I could live in an old motorhome the rest of my life. Affording a new house still seemed like moon travel. "Don't you mother me. I'm serious. You're quite handy." "I was in grade 8. I don't remember how to do any of that stuff anymore." I squinted my eyes against the sudden tears that came out of nowhere. The memories of our house renovation hit me with full bittersweet force. The project had been the last big thing we did together as a family. Oddly, it had turned out to be more fun than a trip to Disneyland. Dad had a way of keeping me laughing constantly, even in the midst of the mess and stress of a home renovation. I could still see the chuckle in his greenish blue eyes as we shared a joke at my mother's expense. He had been a quiet, gentle man, and he adored my mother, but he had a keen sense of the ridiculous. And sometimes, like a pair of naughty school children, we'd meet each other's eyes and stifle laughter over something extraordinary my mother had said or done. "Come on, whatever you decide, let's look it over at least." Ma caught me by the arm and we were off. Our feet crunched on the dead grass as we crossed the field. Patches of snow still hid in whatever shadows they could find, but spring was beginning to win the battle, and here and there were signs of returning life. "You wouldn't need all this pasture land unless you really were going to keep cows." There was a hopeful questioning note in her voice. In Ma's mind, I'd already bought the land and turned it into a working farm. I had to be firm about the cows. I was not taking on cows. "No cows!" I half shouted. "There will not be any cows." Okay, I was just going to say, in that case, you can lease out the pasture to a neighboring farmer. Someone might want it for cows. That could help pay for the house." I made no answer. I soon found the exact spot where I'd put the house. It would be a small house. I could imagine the kitchen facing south. A window over the sink against the back wall would give me a peep at the southern mountains. I could plant lilacs outside the dining room, which would be next to the kitchen on the west. The living room and bathroom would take up the rest of the ground floor, and the loft could become a bedroom. Other than the bathroom, the ground floor could be one big room, containing living room, dining room, and kitchen. Lots of space, lots of air, lots of sunlight, lots of windows. I could even picture my couch and armchairs scattered around in strategic locations. I'd have to buy a proper dining room table, though. The square, modern bit of a thing I had in my apartment in Vancouver wouldn't look right here at all. I'd want an old-fashioned one. Maybe I'd get a warm, sunny maple, oval, and chairs to match. Something like the ones Ma had in her dining room. Oh, and I'd have to put in a wood stove, of course. Ma was right about the cost of heating these days. Maybe a fireplace, rather. Fireplaces were inefficient as a heat source, I knew, but the notions dancing through my head of curling up with a good book in front of a roaring open fire on a frosty winter night were nearly irresistible. I had to stop this kind of thinking. I was beginning to lose it. But in my heart of hearts, I knew it was already too late. It was time to go back and pay another call on Kim Dorset.